This is a day in which the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Today is the fifth Sunday after the feast of Finding of the Holy Cross. And today's gospel is taken from the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 23, verses 1 through 13. In this gospel passage, Jesus Christ talks about the abuse of authority. People getting into high places to bring others down, to cast their own voice, their own power to those that are powerless, to those that are in need. And he talks about this authority coming from the synagogues, the church. You know, the church should be a place of security. The church should be a place of hope. The church should be a place of love. Last weekend I was in Miami. I got there on Saturday. And so since this is my first time in Miami as an Achin, some of the youth decided to show me around Miami. And one thing I noticed, and this probably happens in a lot of cities, you go into low-income neighborhoods where there's a church. You go there at night, and there's one thing you see. You see these homeless people who are sleeping on the steps of the church. The church, as I said, is a place of love, is a place of hope. It's a place where we come to be reconciled, to be renewed. But Jesus Christ warns us to be careful of people who are in high positions, who put power on the powerless. He says, listen to them. Listen to them, but remember that this is not coming from God. This is coming from man. And that's when Jesus says, you only have one teacher, and that teacher is Jesus. You only have one Father, and that Father is in heaven. We are all brethren. We're all brothers. We're all sisters. So Jesus is saying, be aware. Be watchful for these people. But why doesn't Jesus just say, if they tell you something, then don't do it? Christ's ministry revolves around the aspect of love. Loving one another. So if someone comes to you and says, I need your help, or do this, the Christian way is to say, I will. Even if you don't believe in it, even if you don't accept it, you go. Christ says to love your neighbors, but also to love your enemies. This aspect of love has to be in our lives. And I want to share a story. There was this big mega church, and the pastor of the mega church was retiring. And so the committee of the church council did a search party to find a new pastor. And finally, after months of searching, they found this pastor. And this pastor did something that was very clever. He came to church early in the morning before anyone else came. And he dressed up as a homeless man. He dressed up as a homeless man, and he walks into the church. And let me tell you, this is a mega church. Hundreds to 1,000 people in this church. And this pastor said, people kept walking past him, not saying hi, not saying hello. All this pastor saw was people looking at him, judging him because of the way that he was dressed, the way that he was. So the service started. This pastor, who was dressing up as a homeless man, is sitting way in the back. And it comes to the time of the service when the secretary of the church, the church, comes up and wants to introduce to the congregation the new pastor. So everyone's excited. Everyone's happy to see this new pastor. They've been waiting a couple months for this new pastor to arrive. So the secretary goes up to the pulpit and he says that our pastor is here, and he introduces the pastor. So everyone's clapping, everyone's looking around. Then that homeless guy in the back stood up and he started to walk towards the pulpit. People looked at him. People stopped clapping. Some people whispered, "What are you doing? Don't go up there. Don't." Finally, he got up to the pulpit and he said that, "I am your pastor. Today, I don't see a church. Today, I see a gathering of people. A church is a place to be accepted, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter how you dress. You are supposed to be accepted. Today, I didn't feel accepted. So today, we're canceling church. I'll see you next Sunday." See, we never know who's among us. We don't know what the struggles in each other's lives are. And that's the aspect that Jesus is talking about, is that love. Loving one another. Being careful for one another. Supporting one another. The very last thing that this gospel talks about, it's one of my favorite passages, verses in the whole Bible. He says, "But he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." Jesus Christ here is saying, even though that we are the children of God, we are heirs of the kingdom of God, we are low. We are to be low. Thinking ourselves of our lows. Thinking of ourselves as unworthy of the love of God. Unworthy of the respect of God. We must humble ourselves, just as Jesus humbled himself. And we see this in Holy Week, right? We see the celebration of Palm Sunday, the king riding on a donkey into Jerusalem, flowers being thrown, everyone rejoicing in Jesus from Nazareth coming. Then we see a couple days after the complete opposite, where he's being spat at, he's being beat, being insulted. He did it to humble himself. He did it to show us that even though that we may have positions, that we all have the opportunity to be humble. My dear family, as we get into this holiday seasons, as you know, once October 1st hits, we see that Halloween stuffs are coming up, and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. So these 3 months are very joyous within our families, within our church, within our communities. But let this be a plea to you all. There are people here in this world who are suffering. There are people here in this world that need our help. They may not be open about it, but I encourage you all that this holiday season, that you reach out to people. Reach out to your neighbors. Reach out to your coworkers. Reach out to your friends at school. And just ask them, how are you doing? Do you need anything? For the longest time as I've been living with Dirmani, we talk about, people in high places. One thing I've always noticed is whenever we go to someone's house, that the auntie or the uncle of the house would take a couple days off so that they could clean the house. And that they get the best foods, the best dishes, the best glasswares to accept dinner into the house and all those that come with it. And there are many instances where we go to a church and the samajam would set the table with plates and dishes and everything, and us saying, we don't need this elegance. If you have a paper plate, we will take it, because we don't want to give more work to you all. See, it's about seeing others, seeing the sacrifices that others go through, showing respect. And I want to end with one story. We all have the ability to love. We all have the ability to give thanks. One day, I was traveling with a bishop, and we went to someone's house. It was during a minor feast, means minor Lent. It's not one of the big Lents of the church. So the family decided, they cooked this bishop a meal, and there's 4 people with us, and that meal included, beef and chicken and all these things. And so this bishop and all of us, we sat down and we ate. And as we left, we got into the car. One of the achins asked the bishop, it's Lent, and you ate beef. Then the bishop turned to the achin, and he said one of the most amazing, beautiful responses. He says, I know. This family went out of their way to one, invite us to their house. And number two, they sacrificed their time to cook for us. And me, being a bishop, at that moment, when they started serving food and said to them, this is Lent, I don't eat meat for Lent, then that family would feel saddened. So it's all about accepting the circumstances, accepting our surroundings, not being up here, but being here. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which is God.